It all started on what seemed like an ordinary Friday evening, the kind we had grown accustomed to over the years. Vivian and I had made it a tradition to invite a few close friends over for a casual backyard hangout, a chance to unwind after the work week, catch up on life, and strengthen our friendships. The evening had all the makings of a perfect gathering: the aroma of seasoned meat sizzling on the grill, the faint crackle of charcoal mixing with the cool night air, and the lively hum of conversations interspersed with bursts of laughter. The table was laden with bowls of chips, dips, and an assortment of drinks, beer, wine, and Vivian's signature margaritas that everyone raved about. We sat in a semicircle around the patio table, sipping our drinks and sharing light-hearted stories about work, kids, and everything in between. Vivian and I were in our element, effortlessly playing the role of the couple everyone admired, she, the gracious hostess with her quick wit and radiant smile, and I, the laid-back husband, manning the grill and keeping the beers flowing. We had been married for over a decade, and though life had thrown its share of challenges our way, I believed we were solid. Ours was a relationship built on shared memories of late-night road trips, quiet mornings with coffee, and 1,000 inside jokes that only we understood. Sure, there were cracks here and there, arguments about who left the dishes in the sink or forgot an anniversary dinner reservation, but isn't that just part of marriage? I thought those cracks were small, nothing we couldn't patch up with laughter or a heartfelt apology. That evening, I had no reason to believe otherwise as we sat surrounded by the warmth of good company and the glow of string lights we'd strung up together years ago. But in hindsight, those cracks weren't as small as I thought. And that night, with one offhanded remark, everything changed. The evening was going smoothly until it was time to eat. The scent of grilled meat filled the backyard, mingling with the low hum of laughter and the clinking of glasses. Plates were passed around, loaded with juicy chicken cuts, beef, and sides piled high. The warm glow of the patio lights cast a cozy atmosphere over the scene. It was one of those best moments with friends gathered together, the week's worries melting away in the camaraderie of shared stories and good food. As my plate made its way to me, I noticed immediately that the piece of meat sitting in the center was laughably small, barely larger than a bite. It stood out against the more generous portions on everyone else's plates. I chuckled, raising the tiny piece of meat for everyone to see, its size exaggerated in the light of my outstretched hand. "Wow, Vivian, this is the smallest piece here," I said, my voice carrying just enough volume to invite a laugh. "What, am I on a diet or something?" The comment was light-hearted, a harmless joke to keep the mood lively. I glanced at Vivian, expecting her to roll her eyes or toss a playful quip. Instead, she smirked, as she leaned forward, her voice cutting through the buzz of the group. "Well, isn't that fitting? It matches how little you are down there." The words landed like a thunderclap. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. Conversations died mid-sentence, laughter choked into awkward silence, and the warm glow of the evening turned cold. My smile faltered as my stomach dropped, the weight of her words sinking in faster than I could process them. At first, I tried to tell myself it was just a poorly timed joke, a tease that had gone too far, maybe a playful jab meant to get a rise out of me. But the tone of her voice, and the precision of her delivery, made it clear this wasn't just an innocent misstep. I searched her face for any sign of regret, a flicker of acknowledgement that she'd gone too far. Nothing. The words hung like a heavy cloud, suffocating the easy laughter that had filled the backyard only moments before. I could feel the discomfort radiating from our friends as they shuffled in their seats, suddenly engrossed in their food or their drinks, avoiding eye contact at all costs. It was as if they were trying to pretend they hadn't heard what was said, though the silence that followed made it impossible to ignore. I swallowed hard, the small piece of meat on my plate now feeling like a cruel metaphor for how small I felt at that moment. My chest tightened, and a strange mix of humiliation and disbelief flooded through me. This was Vivian, my wife, the person who was supposed to have my back. And yet, here she was, using the one insecurity I'd spent years burying to strike a blow in front of an audience. I forced a chuckle, trying to regain control of the situation, but my voice sounded hollow even to my ears. "Good one," I muttered, more to myself than to anyone else, before looking down at my plate. She had said it jokingly, yes, but I could tell there was something more behind it. Maybe she was annoyed with me or trying to get back at me for some slight. Whatever her intention, she had humiliated me in front of our friends, and I couldn't pretend it didn't hurt. I forced a smile and muttered something about needing to check on the grill, walking away before the redness in my face betrayed how I felt. I focused on the grill, hoping the mundane act of flipping skewers would calm the storm brewing inside me. But it didn't work. All I could hear was her voice, light and joking, delivering the blow as if it were nothing. A part of me wanted to march back and say something, to defend myself, but I couldn't bring myself to face them, again so soon. Instead, I stayed there longer than necessary, the grill my refuge, as I struggled to swallow the lump in my throat and blink away the sting of unshed tears. That night, after everyone had gone home, I couldn't bring myself to confront her. I slept on the couch, the words replaying in my mind over and over. Growing up, I'd wrestled with insecurities about my size, a private battle I had fought in silence since adolescence. It started with subtle remarks from classmates during gym class, and offhand comments that stuck to me like glue, shaping how I saw myself before I even understood the weight of their words. Over the years, I learned to mask those insecurities behind humor, forced confidence, and an unspoken vow to never let anyone see that vulnerable side of me. I told myself it didn't matter, that I was more than just physical attributes, and for a long time, I believed I'd buried those doubts deep enough to never resurface. I found myself questioning everything. How long had she thought this about me? Had there been other moments when she bit her tongue, masking disappointment or disdain? I replayed our most intimate moments in my mind, searching for signs I might have missed, hints of dissatisfaction lurking behind her smiles or loving gestures. It felt like a betrayal, not because she had revealed something to others, but because she had revealed something about herself, about how she saw me, and perhaps always had. The next morning, she apologized, saying it was just a stupid comment, a spur-of-the-moment thing she didn't mean. But I couldn't shake it. Every time I looked at her, I wondered if she had always felt that way, if every time we were together, she'd been secretly disappointed. I tried to push past it, but the wound festered, growing deeper with each passing day. The truth I couldn't ignore was that Vivian's words that night weren't an isolated slip-up. They were the culmination of a pattern I had chosen to overlook for years. It had gradually become normal for her to throw subtle jabs at me, masked as playful teasing or harmless remarks. A comment about my career when I wasn't around, a joke about my habits during a party, a passing remark about my hobbies that felt just a little too sharp. Individually, they seemed trivial. But now, they all fit together like pieces of a puzzle, revealing a picture I hadn't wanted to see. The comment on that fateful Friday night wasn't just a careless quip, it was the stark realization of how normalized belittling me had become in our relationship. Vivian noticed the change in me almost immediately. My silence, my avoidance, it was impossible to hide. At first, she seemed confused, even a little defensive, but soon guilt seeped into her actions. She tried everything to make amends. She cooked my favorite meals, filling the house with the aroma of dishes that used to bring me comfort. She planned elaborate date nights, arranging evenings at places she knew I loved. She even showered me with compliments, too many, too quickly, as if she thought that stacking them high enough could somehow bury the damage. But none of it worked. Her efforts felt hollow, like band-aids slapped over a gaping wound. Every attempt she made to be kind was drowned out by the echo of her words that night, her voice sharp and cutting in my memory. And worse, her newfound niceness only made me question her sincerity. Was this who she really was, or was it just another mask, one she'd worn in the early days of our relationship before the subtle jabs began? That night in front of our friends wasn't just humiliating, it forced me to confront a truth I'd been avoiding for years. I began replaying countless moments from our marriage, dissecting every look, every word, every laugh at my expense. How many times had I laughed along to avoid making a scene? How many times had I brushed off her comments, telling myself I was being too sensitive? And now, all those little moments had built into this, an emotional wall I couldn't break through, no matter how hard I tried. The realization didn't just hurt, it shook the foundation of everything I thought I knew about us. Every time I looked at her, I didn't see the woman I married. I saw someone who had been slowly chipping away at me, whether she realized it or not. And the worst part was, I didn't know if she even understood what she'd done, or if she ever would. One evening, after another tense, silent dinner, she finally confronted me. "Brian, please," she said, her voice strained. "Talk to me. I don't understand why you're so upset. I've apologized 100 times. It was a stupid joke. Why are you still holding on to it?" I looked at her, trying to find the right words, the ones that would make her understand. You don't get it, do you? I said finally, my voice breaking. It wasn't just a joke, Vivian. It was the fact that you said it in front of everyone. You humiliated me. And it's not just about what you said, it's what it means. It's my deepest insecurity, something I've struggled with my whole life, and you threw it in my face like it was nothing. Her expression softened, and for a moment, I thought she might understand. Brian, she said gently, I didn't know you felt that way. You've never said anything about this before. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want you to see me differently, I admitted, the words spilling out like a confession. I didn't want you to think less of me. But now I can't help but feel like you've always thought that way. Her apology felt genuine, but it couldn't undo the damage. The cracks in our marriage, the ones we had ignored for years, were suddenly glaringly obvious. Little arguments about chores or plans spiraled into shouting matches. The trust we'd built over the years had been shaken, and neither of us knew how to rebuild it. Eventually, I realized I couldn't keep living like this. One night, I packed a bag. When Vivian saw me, her voice trembled. What are you doing? I'm leaving, I said, avoiding her gaze. I need time to think. I can't do this anymore. Brian, please, she said, tears streaming down her face. You're leaving because of a stupid joke? It's not just the joke, I said, zipping up my bag. It's everything. The joke was just the spark that lit the fire. I've been unhappy for a long time, and I didn't even realize it until now. After I left, Vivian tried to reach out, calling and texting. But I couldn't bring myself to talk to her. I needed space to process everything. Weeks turned into months, and eventually, I realized I couldn't go back. When I finally called her, my voice was heavy with regret. Vivian, I've thought about this a lot, I said. But I don't think I can come back. Her voice cracked. Why not? Brian, we can work through this. We can fix it. I don't think I can ever forget what you said, I replied. It's not just about the size thing, it's about trust and respect. I thought you saw me as strong and confident. Now I feel like you see me as less. I can't live with that. The divorce papers came a month later. It was the hardest decision I'd ever made, but I knew it was the right one.